My daddy uses Anchor to publish his podcast, and he loves it. Not only can he record, edit, and distribute on this platform, but he can make money at the same time, all for free. If you too would like to get started on your own podcast, go to the website anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Let's go!
Welcome to another episode of the Third Eye Podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to open dialogue regarding the difficult topics that we all face in life. I am your host, Marcus Callahan, and thank you very much for joining me this evening. Welcome and good evening to another episode of the Third Eye Podcast. Today I am joined by one of my favorite people in the whole world, and we are going to be discussing the role that men play in today's society, as well as what it means to be a father and a leader. Mr. Sham Muhammad, how are you?
Hey, how's it going? Also go by Mr. Dean or Dini Abri on the social media space, as well as YouTube and other places.
Absolutely, man. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen and support this podcast.
Hey, no problem. Glad to be of service.
Also, thank you for being my first guest, man. I really do appreciate that.
Oh yeah, I had to get on, man. As soon as I saw you starting a podcast, I did a podcast myself a while back and kind of just stopped. So it's good to be getting on these other podcasts now.
Yeah, definitely, man. I hope to be able to branch out and get more people on.
Yeah, it's an interesting podcast you got going, and the subjects so far I've been listening to, they've been great. That's why I chose this particular topic. I figured it fit in with the rest of them.
Thank you, man. Yeah, absolutely. So tonight we're going to be talking about manhood, fatherhood, leadership, and how they all connect in today's society. And I guess let me just start by asking you this, man. What does it mean to you to be a man and a father?
Man, that's a good question. I've been a father for a decade now, as of 2020. And of course, It's
been a long time.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
And of course, we all fall into manhood at different points in our life, and I think I've been a man. I've been a man for a while.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with that.
Being a man and father in this society is interesting. Our generation's a lot different than the generations before us, so it seems like a lot of the advice that we would typically get from our fathers are a bit tone deaf in comparison, considering how things have changed for better or for worse.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I would agree with that. I think being a man in today's society is a little polarizing. A lot of things have changed in even the last decade. So the way you have to approach things is definitely a little different. I mean, I remember, the way both our fathers brought us up, and it's just the way we have to do things today is so different. Back when we were kids, we didn't have gun drills at school, and now every month or so, my kids have a gun drill. So just the way things are in the world are different now. So we have to approach fatherhood differently.
Yeah, it's actually interesting you bring that up, because I do remember back in school, like there was a little bit of talk of guns, but not to this extent. Like I don't know if we had gun drills, but there was talk of like if there was ever going to be a shooting. I think this is like post Columbine. This would happen, but also the interesting thing was that around that time, like whenever somebody talked about having guns and stuff, like I had friends that had family members that had guns and they went to the shooting range and stuff like that. Like it just wasn't like nobody had the fear of guns like that. Back then it was more of a, hey, some people had them, some people didn't. Uh,
Right,
you knew
right.
what houses were going to get hit up by people who wanted to break into houses.
Yeah, yeah,
Things were a lot different than they are now, where it's like every other few months we're hearing about a shooting or something.
yeah, yeah, and it makes you view the world differently. Uh, for me, sending my kids out into the world, into public school, like that's one of my biggest fears, is that I'm gonna get a phone call that something has happened. Um, I know you homeschool, so how does that? Do you have that fear that something like that could happen, or like how do you go through that?
Oh, absolutely, man. I think one of the bigger reasons we homeschool is because, as you know, you've been out here, you lived out here in Vegas. Our school system's not all that great.
It's horrible.
um, yeah, it's terrible. And to think like our kids aren't getting proper education, and then to think that something like that could possibly happen, you know, it's daunting. Um, and it's kind of odd because I still look at it as like I don't know if shootings are as out there as we think it is, or if it's just social media putting it in our face, you know, more because we have all that at our fingertips now. So it's a worry, but it's not so much as big of a worry as it is the fact that like I know they're not going to be taught the right things, or we might deal with situations like weirdo teachers doing things, or other kids. Um, but that being said, homeschooling is comes with its own issues as well. I worry about the social aspect. I worry about like, am I going to be? Are we teaching them enough of the right things? It's a different it's a different ball game entirely.
Yeah, yeah, I can only imagine that. I wanted to homeschool the kids for a long time, but yeah, like you said, it's a different ball game. I struggled with if I was going to be able to teach them the necessary things they needed to learn, and yeah, that social aspect is crucial. You know, um, I think one of the biggest reasons why we did move in the first place was because Nevada school system is so horrible. And the school that they're in
Oh
now
yeah.
is so amazing, dude. Like the teachers are all great. They're learning stuff that I didn't learn until I was in like fifth grade.
Oh man, school system out here, man.
Yeah, man. So I'm like, wow, the difference. And I see the difference. Like they're coming home with stuff and I'm like, why are you learning this right now? Like I didn't learn this until I was much older. Like what is going on?
Well, the curriculum has changed too, though. That's the interesting thing about like this new generation, man. Like I didn't even know this, but apparently coding is part of the curriculum now. Like learning how to code is part of the curriculum. Like I remember us doing computer science and stuff like that, and
Right.
printing T-shirts or whatever. But I don't remember like doing basic coding. I think that was something that was optional.
Yeah, it was definitely optional, but like you said, times are changing. That's the way things are moving. Pretty soon that's going to be like a staple in the job industry, being able to code, because that's where our society's going.
Yeah. As far as the social aspect goes, like homeschooling costs a lot of money. Let's get that one out the way. But I will say, even out here in Vegas, there are a lot of programs for kids too. Sports, different, martial arts, different, like just different things that they're building out here outside of the strip.
Okay.
That wasn't here even 5 years ago. There's coding schools. There's what else? There's some other stuff that we were looking into as well. It all costs money, but I mean,
right. All
part
money
of getting that
dollars.
social aspect, yeah, part of getting that social aspect, like you can get them into the stuff that you want them to learn, as well as them getting the social aspect now without without public school, and it actually makes me a little worried because it's like I don't think they're gonna build on getting our public education better when we have programs like that now. Like homeschooling is really, really, really on a come up since we started it back a decade ago.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, ideally, like if I could homeschool, I think I would like to do that. Um, just being able to be that close and that intimate with my children's learning experience, I think that's a wonderful thing. So I commend you guys on that, definitely.
Yeah, one thing that I mean, I feel even public, whether it's public or homeschool, like the most important thing, and this rolls into definitely manhood and fatherhood, is that just be engaged with them. That's something that I'm working on a lot. Like homeschooling does, I say that homeschooling doesn't really change how you interact with them. You really have to be on point with that, regardless if they're public school or homeschool. I think the advantage public school has that you have the time away from them. Uh, so when they get back, you have a little bit more time and the space to kind of engage them a little bit more, as opposed to homeschooling them where they're kind of with you the entire day. So that's kind of the downside to homeschooling. That's why I want to get them into programs and stuff, so that at least that they're getting out, and me and the missus have some time to ourselves and time to kind of work on other things like getting the house together and stuff like that. It's it's just like it's a seesaw. There's advantages to both sides, and like I've still thought about public school, but again, my biggest concern is the lack of good education. Like you said, out there, they're learning stuff that we didn't learn until fifth grade, and I look back on the stuff that I learned in fifth grade. I'm like, wow, our stuff was slow.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. So yeah, you mentioned spending time with the kids and being engaged with them, and I try so hard to divvy up the time that I do have between all three of my kids, and I struggle with this sometimes because I'm one person and there are three people, three different, very different personalities. Um, and you have six kids, so
Oh yeah.
how do you handle that, man?
I take it a day at a time, man. A lot of times, like people ask me that all the time, and I always make jokes. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, you're right, man. They're varying personalities, man. It's whether it's 3, 6, or 2. Like you cannot approach them the same way. That's another thing I could say is a little bit more of an advantage with homeschooling. You get to kind of learn your kid. You get to learn how they learn and how they approach things and stuff like that. And yeah, just um, you really just got to take it a day at a time. I'm working on, hopefully once like we get back in our own place, I'm working on trying to sit down with one of them per day if I can, in between working and stuff like that, and just trying to get a grasp on what they want to do and what they're interested in, all that good stuff. I would say, with the oldest one is probably the one that needs more attention, especially with them getting closer to teen years, because you know how it is to be a teenager. A lot
Yeah.
teenagers don't want to spend time with their parents as much, or some of them really do. It's a 50-50 kind of thing. So, you kind of want to embed some stuff before that happens.
Right. Yeah, I definitely I've noticed Malachi. He's in a bit of a growing stage. Like he doesn't always want to be around me. But then there are times where I can't get rid of him.
Yeah.
But I've definitely noticed some changes in the way that he's been moving. With him growing and getting friends, and he has his tablet now where he has the ability to text his friends, and I'm just dad now. Like, he don't want to be my friend anymore.
Oh man,
So,
my two oldest so far are they're growing as well. Like my daughter is 10, and of course the son's same age as your son as well. They've born 7 days apart.
7 days apart, got a Goku and Broly type thing going on.
Yeah, for real. Like, and yeah, it's quite different. I was telling you off the podcast, I was planning on getting my daughter a phone, but I gotta wait until I get paid again to get that going, and I might get my son a phone as well. But I'm trying to teach him to be a little bit more responsible first. That's actually another interesting thing in regards to like manhood and stuff. It just being a male, you know.
Yeah.
We learn a lot differently than women do, and we mature differently. And I'm seeing that a lot between my daughter and my son, how they mature and grow. Like there's already different personality as is, but I'm like seeing with my sons, like they're maturing in a different fashion than my daughters. And that's always interesting. Uh, teen years, man. I just don't know, man. I'm gonna be going through 3 different phases of that, so it's just like,
Yeah, man, you definitely got your work cut out for you. But yeah, it's, trying to teach them to be responsible. That's a big thing. And I struggle with it sometimes because I look at myself and I'm like, I'm 30 and I'm still learning things. Like, so yeah, it's just,
oh man, tell me about it. I think
like when I was younger,
because
man, when I was younger, like I thought being the man of the house would be the best thing on the planet. Nobody telling me what
yeah.
to do or where to go. Man, was I wrong?
No, if anything, you got more people telling you what to do or where to go.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
I think that's a disadvantage that we're currently at. It's like our parents had us like after all of this. They already figured they. I mean, I'm not to say that they probably had everything figured out, but I'm pretty sure they had more figured out than we did.
Right.
Starting off in our 20s as parents as opposed to like 30s. Like my dad, like the age that I am at right now, 29, is when my dad had me. So I'm at the age where he was a starting point of a father, and I have 6 kids. So it's a completely different thing.
Yeah, I think my parents were 26 when they had me. Yeah.
Mid-20s, yeah.
Mid-20s. My parents were mid-20s when they had me, and I was 20 when I had my first.
So, yeah, 19 myself, so 1 year behind you,
yeah.
or ahead of you.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's crazy. Like I always wonder if I'm doing a good job, and then I take them to the doctors, or then I'm out with them, and people are always like, "Your kids are so well behaved. Like you must do a wonderful job." And I'm like, "Yeah,
really." Oh man, I get the same thing too. Like I get that, and whenever we take them up for their yearly checkups and stuff, like I always get, man, they're really healthy, and I'm like, really?
I'm like,
I mean,
really? Are you
I
sure?
feed them. It's like I feed them, and I just make sure they don't get too out of control. That's about it. I mean, but I don't know. Seeing other kids too in the stores and stuff like that, and it's like, yeah, you know what? I might not be doing a bad job.
Right. Yeah, you look around and like, I may not be doing that bad of a job. And there's some kids that I see in public, and I'm just like, yo, what is your parents doing?
Exactly. Oh man.
So yeah, fatherhood it's nothing like I thought it would be, but it's everything, man. Like I love it. Like I wouldn't change it for the world, man. I love being a father.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's crazy to think because if you told me, and like I said, I've been a father a decade now. If you told me a little over a decade ago that I'd be a father of six, I would have thought you were crazy. You know, I never really looked at myself as being a father. You know, at least not until I got this age or something like that. Like
Right.
my thought process was always trying to work on my art, or finding some kind of work or something. If I had a partner with me at that time, that'd be great. But I was kind of focused on wanting to get that kind of stuff into order. uh it actually goes into manhood as well. Like, a lot of stuff that I've been reading recently and studying and stuff like that. Like, I realized, man, our 20s are actually supposed to be our developmental years. That's supposed to be the
Right.
time where we're figuring everything out and um, getting things in order, and just figuring out who we are as a man and stuff like that. So for us to have been parents during that time, that's yeah, it kind of throws things off a bit. But that's I guess it's like I wouldn't trade it for anything, like, just in hindsight. But I think from our 30s on now is where we're really going to start seeing, where we are as parents and, men and stuff like that. Like, that's like that's the grace period. I'm gonna say.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, growing or being a parent during our 20s, when those are our developmental years, I think it kind of gives us an advantage, going into our 30s, because we've already had to deal with so much, and here we are, like we're surviving, like we're getting through it, we're finding ways, to live. So I think it's only gonna make what we go through later on in life that much easier. Maybe not easy, but easier to deal with.
Yeah, I think the same way. Like, it's um hmm. Actually, I
Oh,
was gonna ask if you had any other questions in that regard.
um, no, not in that regard, but I do have a question regarding fatherhood and manhood. And it's faith based. So I haven't really introduced, like, so my kids, they know about the Most High, and they know about religion, but I haven't really delved into it uh, deeply with them. Is that something that you do with your children?
It's been on and off for me personally. Like I said before, like, going into your rolling from your 20s, going into your 30s and stuff, you learn a lot of things. And uh, as you probably know, I spent a lot of time away from religion. I was originally atheist, and then eventually I kind of started studying the Bible and like Hebrew culture and stuff like that. So I've been doing it. We've been doing it with the kids and stuff. But as we come to grow and learn more stuff, it's been a little bit more rough. Trying to figure out exactly what we want to teach the kids and stuff. Like, you kind of have the basics.
Yeah.
Just as you said, you kind of have the basics, and you're trying to figure everything else out. So, um, in that regard, I would probably say, hopefully, going forward, I'd be able to teach them a lot more. But right now, we're still kind of learning ourselves.
Right, right. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, man. I used to be religious, and I've never lost my faith that there's a higher, more divine power, but I struggle with what that is, and so that's why I have a hard time teaching them, because I still don't know myself.
Yeah, I think this is another product of, like, how society has changed as well. We have so much information at our fingertips, and to be honest with you, a lot of it's BS. I mean, there's just a lot of crap out there now.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
is.
compared to it's like I kind of feel for like the older generations because the way they learned was like, well, you go to the library and you pick up a book or something, and what you learned and studied from there, that's what it was. You know, it wasn't a lot of people kind of jumping in and telling you, oh, well, this is how this and that is, and whatever at every step and turn, you know, and the people that you want to learn around, that's just how it was. You know, now everybody wants their hand in what you're learning and what you're talking about, and you're trying to teach your kids and everything. Like everybody wants a hand in it now. You know,
Yeah, that's
it's
definitely true.
yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, being that you and I are both married men, uh, marriage can be tricky sometimes, man.
Oh, very.
You know, Amanda and I have definitely had our struggles. We've had some really high points, but you know, man, trying to navigate this world uh, as the leader of the house can be difficult, man. Like it weighs on me sometimes. Like, do you ever feel that?
Oh, I feel it all the time. I think also it is a product of age. Like as I mentioned before, like our 20s is supposed to be our developmental years, you know, and um, it's quite different between like men and women when it comes down to like development and stuff like that. Like usually by now, at least from what I've seen, you know, I have a lot of female friends. You know, a lot of them kind of have things figured out in their 20s, like what they actually want to do. You
Mm-hmm.
know, not necessarily say that they have everything together, they just have everything figured out as what they want to do. Um, because they mature a little bit faster than we do. You
Right.
know, they mature that regard faster than we do. Whereas, like, you know, we're we're immature in our own way, but we're a lot more logical beings and stuff like that. So we kind of need that space to learn those things. And if we don't really have that in our 20s, it makes it a lot harder to roll into our 30s trying to figure things out. So as you probably see, like now that we're in our 30s, we're starting to figure like, okay, yeah, you know, we're trying to get a house and trying to uh, lead our families and stuff like that, and we're doing a lot better job than we would have done in our 20s, not just because of age, but because this is kind of this is kind of getting past our development stages and kind of going into like applying all of it, you know. So marriage is one of those things, like, and it varies a lot now. Marriage marriage is very varied now, as you know.
Yeah, definitely. I think yeah, what you were saying, being going into our 30s now, um, trying to navigate between getting into a house and you know making sure the bills are paid on time. A lot of that stuff, like I in my 20s, I wasn't thinking about that. You know, even though I had kids, like my mind wasn't there, and I think that's why me and Amanda struggled so much because her mind was already there. You know, she had already matured to that point, and for me, I was straggling. Like I know I got these responsibilities, but you know, in my mind, I'm like, man, I'm still so young, and you know, I wanted to be able to do things that I couldn't do anymore because you know I had a family. So
Yeah.
it took me a while, and I hate. I mean, I bring it up because it's necessary for me from my growth. But yeah, man, I was so stupid.
Hey man, I feel that because for me it was kind of a bounce. It was a bouncing around between like, yeah, I know these responsibilities are here and stuff like that. But 20s. That's kind of, I mean, that's kind of what it was. Like, you know, you already know. Like, I used to go out and drink a lot after I turned 21 and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. And that's actually another interesting thing because my teens, like, I wasn't straight edge, you know what I mean? But I had no interest in like smoking or drinking or whatever. Like we had a lot of people, especially out here in Vegas, you know,
Right.
in their teen stuff, they're drinking and smoking and all this other shit, doing all those stuff. Like, excuse my language, sorry.
No, you're good, man. You can say whatever you want.
But there's a lot of people doing smoking and drinking and stuff, and I just wasn't interested in it. Like I wasn't against them doing it or whatever, but I wasn't. It wasn't something that I was really interested in. Uh, so I really didn't drink until like I turned 18, which still isn't a legal age, but my friends had alcohol at their house or whatever, and I drank once. I was like, it tastes like piss. I'm not doing this again. So when I turned 21 and I started drinking again, I'm like, yeah, this still tastes like piss, but I'm 21 and it's legal, so
Right.
I guess.
Yeah,
I guess it
I
tastes
feel you on that,
more
man. Yeah, man. I didn't start drinking until I was 19, and growing up in Vegas, our friends were doing it from 15 and on. So, and with Shanton Harrell being our cousins, they all of their friends were doing it, and I was always around them, but I never had an interest to be drinking or smoking or anything like that. And then I hit 21, and I still didn't really care for drinking. I still don't really care for drinking, but I mean, I'm able to do it more socially now.
Yeah, I'm the same. I do it more socially now. Like it, I realized probably a couple years back that it became a crutch for me, and I'm like, yeah, I gotta stop doing this. Uh, so I slowed down on it, and of course, with my health issues and stuff like that too, I had to slow down as well.
Right.
So now it's like it's just a social thing, or every now and then I might drink or something like that. The smoking, like I could never really get into smoking. Like outside of like smoking with you, like doing like the smoking
hookah
with you or my friend Yasmin, like I couldn't really get into it. And now we have weed and uh, weed's legal now. I'm still not interested. Like I never really saw the hype behind it. Like I got high a few times, and all it really did was make me sleepy and hungry. So I was just kind of like, there's really not much to this.
There's really not, man. It's so funny you say that, because I get asked all the time, like, why I don't smoke weed. Like, because I still smoke hookah. I've tried to cut back a little, but I still smoke hookah every now and then. And I get asked all the time, like when people ask me if I smoke, I'll be like, yeah, I smoke hookah here and there. And they're like, you don't smoke weed? And I'm like, no, like, why would I? Like, I've done it before, and you're right. It's only made me sleepy and hungry. And look, I'm sleepy and hungry enough. Like, I don't need to amplify that.
The only thing that is done for me more recently, and this is without the THC and stuff, it's just that it kind of helps calm my condition down. That's about it. But other than that, like I don't see the hype behind it. But I'm actually glad it is legal too, because I feel like stuff like that needs to be at the very least decriminalized. Because if people aren't hyping it up and it's not this big taboo thing around it, it just kind of blends into nothing, and that's what it seems like to me. It seems like it's become so wide of a thing now that nobody even thinks about it. It's not a big deal anymore.
Yeah, I would definitely say that's true, man. I'm happy that it's. I wish it was legal out here. To be honest with you, and people out here are so taboo about it. But I think the positives far outweigh the negatives, and I wouldn't even really call them negatives of THC, but I think it's a great thing that people can have access to that. And yeah, like you said, now that the hype around it is kind of died down, it's not a big deal. So
yeah. Speaking of that, the hype factor of things, like going back into your question about marriage, I do kind of think like ever since certain configurations of marriage have become legal, that I think the hype factor of people just like tripping with each other about it has died down as well. Like I think people are realizing that legal marriage is not up to stuff like they thought it was.
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's not, and I've always been the type that I believe that it doesn't need to be legal for it to still be a marriage.
I'm the same way. I've always thought that as well. Like I really felt like, man, people are really just. And I don't want to say it's just a piece of paper, because I mean the paper is important. It helps with a lot of things or whatever. But
it definitely.
I feel like,
but
I feel like it shouldn't be prioritized over your relationship. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I
feel like a lot of people do. They put that marriage license. They prioritize that over the actual marriage.
Yeah, and I think the reason for that, and like my perspective on like that in particular, is that marriage itself is actually a business as opposed to relationship. They're two separate things. And when people look at it in that kind of fashion, and when they understand that those are two separate things, they know which way to prioritize it. And a lot of people treat marriage like a business, but then they kind of lump it in together with the relationship, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think people should try to focus on like making sure that the relationship is good before going into, it's just like having a business contract. Like if I want to go into business with you, I'm not going to go into business with somebody that I just absolutely cannot get along with.
Right.
Or their views on what the business should be is like polar opposite to me. It's just not a smart idea. And I think that when it comes down to marriage, people need to think that way as well. Like you need to look at like your relationship first. Like, is this a good relationship? Are we on the same path here? If we're not on the same path, is it detrimental to each other? Like,
right.
You gotta look at these things first. And I think like it's this strange thing about like studying traditional marriage from different cultures and stuff versus how America does things.
Mm-hmm.
We're too fast paced with everything. We're too not trying to get to know each other and figure things out first. People just jump into things now.
Yeah, definitely. I I find it interesting that you refer to marriage kind of like a business, and like it does have a business aspect to it, and I find that very interesting because I hear like when I'm with certain like younger couples who are like recently married versus older couples, like our parents, like my parents, whenever they discussed money and whatnot, it was always our money. It wasn't your money or my money or things like that. But I hear a lot of young couples talk like that, and it makes me
right.
I'm like, you guys, you sound like you're in a business, not a marriage.
Yeah. It's I feel like marriage is a certain type of business. It's one of those things where it's like, because it is business where you share money as well.
Right.
And I think marriage is one of those type of businesses. But from a traditional sense, like I'm more traditional, and as I talk here and there, I talk about like poly marriage and stuff like that too. Traditionally speaking, like there is the president and then there's the vice president and stuff like that as well. And as far as like money goes, like you still have to look at it as like our money, because if you're sharing a household and stuff like that, I mean, there's things that both of you have to take care of regardless.
Right.
Especially if both of you are working. But at the same time, it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of your own money to the side to do things that you want to do with and stuff like that. It can't be something. Yeah, like it can't be something that gets to your head, where it's like,
right. I also think,
this is absolutely my money and you're not gonna, it can't be that kind of situation.
That's
In
definitely
my
true.
opinion.
I agree with that. And then also it can't be something that is a secret. So like
Yeah,
I'm all for you having your own money. Like I want you to have your own money that you can play around with and do what you want. I want you to be able to do what you want to be able to do. Absolutely. I don't want it to be a secret from me though.
exactly. I think that's the most important part with any marriage, like just anything, money, like anything, like everybody has to be like consenting and know, just being the know of everything, know what you're dealing with. Like, because I've seen other couples as well uh, where the man handles all the money, even the money that the woman makes, she gives to him and stuff like that, and it works fine. But that's because they're all in the know. It's not something where like she jumped in a relationship with the guy and then all of a sudden, oh, this is how it is. It's like no, they knew from the jump what things are, and that's like how their relationship works.
Right,
And that's
right.
why I say marriage is kind of like a business because there's different aspects to it. There's no black and white to how you run a marriage specifically, just like there's no black and white to how you run a business.
That's
There's
true.
certain things that you have to consider, uh, across the board when it comes down to business or marriage. And then there's little variables between like business partners and, marriage couples and stuff like that. So,
Yeah. Man, I agree with that. being being married, being a man and being a father, like they each have their own specific challenges.
yeah, it's it's funny how they all tie together, but they're all separate things.
Yeah,
It's like it's especially that a man is like you gotta focus on one per day. Like it's kind of hard to do all three at once. It's like man, like your personal man stuff and then being a father and then being a husband. It's like, yeah, I gotta separate this. I need like a couple hours to do this and then a couple hours to do that and then a couple hours to do this.
right,
You
right.
know.
So since like we're both in the same boat, being as we have a family, we're married, we're employed, so we go to work. How do you find time to have me time? The time to yourself to where you can just be by yourself and do what you want to do without having to feel the pressure of being a man and a father and a husband.
So far, I have to say I don't. That is actually the roughest part about being a family man is that me time is just like it's whenever it happens. Sometimes, and especially with my job. My job's on call, and the hours are there's no like if I had a scheduled job, it might be a little bit easier to kind of figure that out. But my job is on call, and there's some days is a 16-hour day, some days a 4-hour day. And then there's sometimes where I just have a whole week of not working at all. And when stuff like that happens, I don't even know what to do with myself because it's like, oh man, I got all this time to do something now and don't know what to do. But right now, I'm not much in the position to fully think on it. Like I think once we get into our own place again, uh, and I got some things figured out. I think I think the most important thing about having me time is that being productive. Honestly, like that's why I'm kind of striving to open my own business and stuff because I feel like that kills two birds with one stone. I get the me time that I need, but I'm also making money and making moves that I want to make at the same time. You know, I know there's like leisure time and stuff like that, but I feel like when you're doing something that you really want to do as far as business stuff goes, it kind of feels like leisure time, sometimes. And if it kind of feels like work, it's just a mixture of those things. So if there if there was one something that I think a lot of men should do is like try to find a hobby or something that makes you a bit of money, like it makes you feel like that time being paid for. You know what I mean?
Right. I agree with that, man. Yeah, I myself, I don't get a lot of me time. Um, I work overnight, so I sleep most of the day. And when I am awake, I'm trying to spend as much time as I can with my wife and my kids. And on my days off, like there are like when everyone else goes to sleep, I'll usually take like an hour for myself before I go into bed with Amanda. Um, just so I can wind down and, process everything that I've been through for the day or the week. But even that is a struggle sometimes because, my wife wants me to go to bed with her, and so finding the balance can be hard sometimes. But like you said, if you find something that you like, a hobby or something that you're passionate about, that you can use and be productive with and make money off of, I think that is sufficient um, replacement, sort of say, for that me time.
Yeah.
And that's really like I think I found that with this podcast, and I've already made $1 so far. It's not
I
much,
honestly
but
think if
it's
you
not
get
much, but
to yeah, I honestly think if you get to a point where your hobby is taking care of your living situation, that is the best thing a man can have.
absolutely,
It's like,
absolutely. And
that, that is the best.
that's what I'm striving for, man. I want to be able to turn this into something that I can support my family with, and it's been done before. Like I've seen people do it. Um, Actually, like the inspiration I got, like I follow this podcast called Mile Higher Podcast, and I follow them because at first they had a YouTube channel
Yeah.
before they had the podcast. So I've been following this couple for maybe like 4 years now, and I've seen them grow their podcast into a well-oiled business, and it supports them now. Like that's their main source of income, and they enjoy it. It's something that they enjoy doing, and so far I found that this is something that I really like doing. Even if I don't make money doing this, I enjoy.
It's something that you enjoy.
Yeah, something I enjoy. I enjoy putting the time and effort into constructing these episodes, and they haven't been that long yet, because I'm just getting my feet wet. But this is something that
Yeah.
I really enjoy doing, and I hope I can grow it.
Something that I learned because I started a lot of my projects in my 20s and stuff. I tried YouTube. I've done Twitch. I've tried, as I mentioned, I did a podcast and stuff. And as you know, I'm working on and off on a video game as well.
Yeah, definitely. You gotta plug that in a minute, man, because you gotta plug that.
I'll definitely play. One thing I've learned is that with this particular kind of thing, especially, I guess that's actually a great thing about like coming up in the later 2000s, the 2020s, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And is that you just gotta keep fishing around until you find something you just absolutely enjoy and you're just really passionate about. And I think if this podcast is that for you, eventually it will become something lucrative because you'll just be working at it and working at it. Next thing you know, it's up there.
Right.
Me particularly, I started. I still have a community that I run based on the beat 'em up genre of video game, which is like Final Fight, Streets of Rage, and all that kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm building my own game around it, and um, it's kind of at a standstill because unfortunately with gaming is just expensive. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's a lot of money put into it first, and then eventually you'll get that money back if you do get it back at all. But I've had the opportunity to actually work with a company that I've been a fan of for such a long time, and now there a game of one of my most favorite franchises coming out, and I have, I can't talk too much until it comes out, but I have my own input into it now, and I think once that kicks off, it's going to bring a lot more opportunities. But I definitely had to work pretty hard to get there. And, I still look back at it sometimes and kind of feel like, man, I don't feel like I did a lot of work, but a lot of stuff is built up on that in that regard. And I'm hoping that eventually I do come up with my own company, my own multimedia company. I'm working on that as well. And yeah, you just got to keep fishing around. And it's not to say that you have to have your own business either. It could just be a career.
Right.
My job as a stagehand, I enjoy doing that as well. And at one point, I thought about making a career out of it, and I'm still kind of moving up in the ranks in that job because I enjoy doing it. But my health is saying otherwise right now. That's the big
Right.
issue. If my health were in a better position, I think I probably would have been pursuing that more as a career. But my health gets in the way of that, as opposed to like doing what I do at home, the video games and stuff like that. My health doesn't really get in the way of that too much in comparison. So yeah, it's just really about finding something that becomes second nature to you. It's not to say that you won't be working at it or chipping away at it for a while, but you're not going to feel it as much as, say, working a standard 9 to 5 at a job that isn't really your end goal job. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
definitely,
I've
man.
had quite a few of those.
Yeah, definitely. I like what you said about working at it and for so long and feeling like you haven't really done much, but being as someone who like I grew up with you and I've seen not all of what you've done, but most of what you've done, in the gaming community, and like I've seen how hard you work at it. Um, so I could definitely, say that you are well on your way, man. And I hope with all of my heart that you can get your own company off the ground, man, because that would be amazing. Like my parents still like they always ask me if you're still doing the video games. I'm like, yeah, he's still in that realm. And I tell him all the time, like, you're gonna see his stuff. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, you're gonna see his stuff.
Yeah, I'm just it's like I feel like I think the thing with this industry is like sometimes you feel like you're right there at the finish line, but you're kind of not. You still got a lot of work to do. Like there's a mountain there between you and the finish line. You can see the finish line.
Right,
You can look at it with your eyes, but you're not there yet.
right.
I feel like that's where I'm at right now. So especially considering like the stuff that happened recently, like my laptop died on me, my Xbox died on me too, and I was doing a lot of streaming from that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's where that's where my pockets start hurting because you got to replace stuff and it's really expensive. And I'm working on trying to build a couple of setups, like a PC for gaming and a PC for like a workstation and stuff, and hopefully getting a laptop. And yeah, so right now I'm at a complete standstill, but I'm still writing out things for my project and writing out a business plan for my business and stuff like that. I'm still putting in some kind of work, but it's driving me nuts not being able to put my hands on
Right.
something.
I feel you, man. That's this whole week. We've been trying to get this episode done, and like every time that I have a setback, I'm like, man, I just want to work on this so bad.
Oh yeah, man. That is exactly what happened with my podcast, man. Like it was just one setback after another. I eventually will be bringing it back, but I have to get my workstation and stuff, and I got to get my own little office and everything. Uh, because as you know, having kids and the wife and kids around, it's not very easy to do a podcast and
It,
stuff like that. You got to be in
yeah,
quiet.
yeah. It is not. I have to fight tooth and nail to get them to be quiet sometimes. Like, yo, daddy has to do some recording. Like, can y'all just please keep it down
Oh
for a
man,
minute?
man.
uh,
Tell me about it. Streaming too. It's just like, man, if you don't have your own little office, it's rough. It's really rough.
Yeah, man. And
Uh,
that's what I think that's what I'm most excited about. Like when we do move into this house, is being able to have that dedicated office space that I can work out of.
yeah, man.
And not just myself.
Congrats on that.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And it's big enough to where I can work out of it, and Amanda can also work her business out of it. So I'm very excited about that, man.
That is a perfect position to be in. I can't wait to get to that spot myself. I've been building my credit, and I've actually been thinking about looking into get my house built. I've been hearing a lot about doing something like that.
I've always wanted to look into like getting a house built. Like, and I tell the man all the time, like if I was going to get a house, like I would want it to be built. Like I want to own the property, the land that it's on. I want to be able to build the house. And this is just a personal preference to me. Like I don't want to be around anybody. Like I don't want neighbors.
I know that feeling so much, man. I think. I mean, it depends on the state, I guess, but it doesn't seem like securing land itself is as hard as you would think it would be. But I think the research that has to go into it is time consuming because you don't want to buy the wrong land,
right?
True. But it doesn't seem like land is very costly, as opposed to, especially when you think about like how much rent and stuff like that is now. It seems like it's cheaper to get land now, but it's the research and having to make sure you're doing things right that kind of. That's part of being a man. It's so much of like, wow, I got to research a lot of stuff. Nobody told me about this half of adulthood. I thought when I finished school, that was it. We learned everything and we were just gonna go work and do stuff. Like, nope.
Yeah, they don't tell you all this stuff that you got to go through. But we're learning. We're making our way.
This is the interesting thing about this generation as well, though. Like we have so much information at our fingertips, but it's so hard to retain anything. And it's like learning stuff like taxes, like how to do your own taxes. I still want to learn how to do my own taxes, and yeah, I think that's what my 30s are reserved for. Just learning everything that we need to learn to be a quote unquote be a man in society. I actually made a little funny quip on Facebook about how like I want to learn how to drive stick so I can be part of the cool kids club. Because talk about driving.
I feel you though, man. That's no joking. I definitely want to be able to learn how to drive stick because I want to be a part of that club.
Yeah, that's see, and that's one thing that I definitely wanted to touch on as far as manhood is that it is a big balance of things that we have to deal with, and those things it's a lot of pressure, and the issue I kind of find with our generation is that a lot of us are trying to avoid those things because there's so much pressure to it. But the thing about it is once you tackle those things, it's a very rewarding too. I I don't really, and maybe that's just a product of how we grew up too, but I don't really feel like a lot of our responsibilities are things that like I would particularly complain about. I just feel like it's something that it's just always been something that we have to do, and I think the lack of acknowledgement that we have to do these things is more the issue rather than those things itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I can definitely see that, man. Like you said, the pressure it can be overwhelming sometimes, to say the least. how do you deal with that? What's the best way to say it? Like emotionally, I guess. Like how do you deal with the pressure of everything you have to deal with as a man in today's society?
Interesting you asked that because I was thinking about doing a personal podcast about mental health because I don't know if you've seen, but more recently, towards June of last year, somebody that I knew took his own life because of his mental state.
Wow.
And the thing about that is that I think that's the biggest problem in our country when it comes down to the men. We don't really have an out for our mental issues and our emotional issues and stuff like that. Like I feel like and see, I don't like the term toxic masculinity. I don't think masculinity should ever be associated with toxicity. I think the things that are actually considered toxic masculinity, and I mean like the legit things, not things that people are just throwing out there because social media,
Right.
like the stuff that is actually toxic, I consider those things to be stupidity rather than masculinity. Like, you know, somebody saying like, "Oh, well, real men don't drink hot chocolate," or stuff like that. I'm just like, you know, I don't look at that as toxic masculinity. I look at that as just stupid.
Yeah.
If I heard somebody say that, I laugh at them. It's like, so as far as like handling an emotional state, I think that it's very important that we try to find some kind of way to vent these things, whether it be talking to friends or seeing a psych or something like that. Like we have to have something in that regard because it's really hard to find that elsewhere. It's the thing that's always been kind of tough for me and my wife is communication. So I find it really tough to like sit down and talk with her about a lot of stuff that's bothering me. So one thing that I know I usually do is I just stay productive to kind of distract myself a bit.
Right.
But more recently, I've been thinking about just going to see a psych so I can just kind of sit down and talk about these things. Another thing that I do is I kind of write these things down as well. Writing helps a lot. I didn't think that it did, but it's like, yeah, no, writing this stuff down is kind of like talking. Only thing is you're not getting that feedback, and that's the hardest part is finding good feedback.
Right, definitely, man. I like that you brought up toxic masculinity because I would agree with you. There are like I don't really associate masculinity and toxicity together. Like the things that you mentioned, like all that bravado and chest beating and all that other that stuff. That's that's not masculinity at all. It's stupid. It's stupidity. So I agree with you.
It really isn't.
I agree with you.
It's just a visual thing because it's like when you really think about like masculinity and stuff like it, people who have that bravado and stuff, they're still doing things that like. And that was actually another thing. Actually, I'm part of a couple of men's only groups that talk about these things all the time. And one particular thing that they talked about, and it's kind of like Fight Club. You don't talk about Fight Club, but
right,
it's like one thing in particular that has always been touched on is to not argue with your wife, and it's because of the fact that our mental states are different. So you're never really going to win that argument. Even if you feel like you've won that argument, you haven't. And it's one of those things where, like, silence is gold.
Mm-hmm.
You should never argue in that regard. Like, if you have to say your piece or whatever, then say your piece and call it a day and leave it alone. Don't dwell on it. Don't, just don't let it ruin your day. And that's really hard. It takes a lot of what is that I'm thinking here? Self-control.
It does. It definitely takes a lot of self-control to do that. I I have noticed that within my relationship, since we started doing couples therapy, that's actually one of the things that we've learned is to not argue with each other, because it's really just a waste of energy. Like there's nothing productive about arguing, because
Yeah.
you're not gonna hear the other person out, because you're too busy focusing on how you feel. So, like you said, I think say say your piece if you need to say your piece, and then let it breathe, and then come back to it when you're rational and cool and level headed, and then talk. Don't argue, talk. So I definitely having an outlet to express how you feel, whether it's writing something down or going to see a therapist or whatever it is. But I think that's a very important thing, especially for in a time where men are being told that their feelings are toxic.
Oh yeah. Oh man. That's the weird thing about social media. It's like social media always calls for like mental health and um, we need to focus on men's emotions and this and that. But then it's like when you get to that, they're telling you you're toxic and you're trash and all this other stuff. It's like, well, what is it? Are you going to focus on the men's emotions or not? You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right.
Uh,
And I think it's a big thing that it all ties back into fatherhood as well, because like Malachi's not really, he's not that emotional. Like he gets emotional sometimes, but Maurice is like real sensitive.
yeah,
And I try to tell him all the time, like, don't, like, it's okay, man. Like, it's okay to be sensitive. Like, it's okay to show your feelings. Like, they might tell you in the outside that's not what they want, but I'm letting you know, like, it is okay. Like, if you need to cry, go ahead and cry, man.
yeah.
Like, if you need to
It's
get it
important to
out,
let them know
get it out,
that.
man.
I think like, and this is the interesting thing for men though. It's like I think we have to find a balance. Like we have to know when to show our emotions,
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
that's the importance of actually like of fatherhood too though. Like you provide that space for them to let those emotions and stuff out, like normally, so that they're not out in a situation where it just pops out. You know what I mean? Like
Right,
because it's rough. It's not like for women when like they're in public and they're showing their emotions and stuff like that. People don't really bat an eyelid to it, or they rush to kind of to help. Like we're ridiculed when we show emotion out in society and stuff like that. So we need that space. Like it's one of those things. It's like you can't sit there and like and that's one of those things that I feel like people call toxic masculinity, where it's like they're saying men don't cry. It's like nah, that's nonsense. Men do cry, but it's one of those things where it's like you got to know when to show those emotions. There's just certain situations that you just kind of you have to be reserved, and that's it's a tough thing about being a man, but that's part of that. Like you have to know when to show emotion and when not. When to have control over that kind of
right.
stuff.
Absolutely, man. And it's definitely, it can be a juggling act. Oh man, I we can go on for days and days about this topic, man, because we have so much experience now.
Yeah.
uh, but I definitely want to get this wrapped up. Unfortunately, my 9 to 5 beckons.
Yes, it does. All right.
But man, I appreciate you so much for taking the time to speak with me, to be a guest on this podcast for me, like, and just to your support in general, man. It means the world to me.
Oh, absolutely, man. And I'm down to do a part two, part three. If we got to come back and do another one at a later time, different
Yeah,
topics.
definitely, man. I there will be a continuation of this conversation, and you will definitely be a guest for more than just this topic as well, because I appreciate your mind, man. Like, you're one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. So
I
I
appreciate
love
that.
talking with you. I love talking with you, man.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad to be on. I'm glad you started this up too, man. It's really cool. It's really cool.
Hey.
You're
Thanks,
another one
man.
of the intelligent people, man. I've been wanting to hear your mind about a lot of stuff, and I know you had a lot of stuff on your mind for a while, so it's good to know that you got a podcast to finally put those things out there. You know.
Absolutely, man. I felt it was time. Like, I've always been, you know me, I've always been more reserved. And, I observe a lot, but I don't ever really speak on it. But I felt it was time to go ahead and do so. So I'm happy to be doing this.
Hey, man. And if you ever get back in the rap game, I'm
I actually have a protege.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I have she is she's very new. I'll just say that. She's very new to rapping. So she's a work in progress. But she has so much potential, man. And I kinda liken the relationship I have with her to Bruce Wayne in the Dark Knight Returns series.
Yeah.
And he takes on that younger Robin, Carrie Kelly. So it's kind of how I feel like. She brought me out of retirement to go ahead and whip her into shape.
He also said she, so it's very progressive.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I've been working with her. We've been writing and I'm trying to hone her skills because she has a passion for it. And I love rapping and writing and all that, but it was never really like my real passion. That was more so Nico's thing.
Yeah. I'd be interested in collabing and making some things happen if I get my multimedia company going. Like I am starting. Oh yeah, I got to plug that by the way. But I am
Yes.
starting. I am starting with just video games and comics right now. And hopefully branching out to
Okay.
animation and music and stuff at a later time. But I definitely want to do a multimedia company because I know way too many artists in too many different forms to not do something.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I agree with you, man. So yeah, I look forward to that. Absolutely. And so before we go, man, tell everyone about this game you're working on.
So I'm working on a beat 'em up Metroidvania style game. It's old 2D pixels. It's a retro style. It's called Deadly Metropolis. Right now, I don't really have any of the social media up. I kind of took them down until I have a demo going. But if you search Google Deadly Metropolis, you'll probably find some information on it. Probably old, outdated information, but uh, eventually I will have something big come out for it. Hopefully by the end of this year. I'm working on it. Hopefully, once I get everything set up, I can get back into doing the work that I was doing before. And as you know, you got a character in it yourself.
Yeah, man, I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, I did a little bit of work on it before my laptop died on me. so so I might have to go back and do that. But yeah, looking forward to putting that one out there. Also, as far as like where to find me, you can find me under Dindy Aubrey anywhere. It's DINTHEABARY on any social media platforms and stuff. And hopefully, eventually, my company comes out. It'll be. I don't have a name for it yet. I just know it has Abari in it somewhere. But the other community that I run is a beat 'em up community. It's a video game community. I cover stuff like Streets of Rage, currently Streets of Rage 4, which is coming out pretty soon. Brawlers Avenue. Look that up on Google as well. You can find that anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's it. That's it. Where you can find me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, man. You guys go check him out. If you're listening to this, please go check him out. My boy is amazing at what he does. Trust me. I've watched him for all my life. He really knows what he's doing. All right, man. Thank you very much for joining me. We definitely got to do it again soon.
Yeah.
This was awesome. Everything I wanted and more, man. So definitely thank you for taking the time out to do this with me, man.
Absolutely, man. Hopefully next time we'll be a little bit more focused. I know we kind of jumped around this time around, but I mean that happens in the first stage of the podcast. It always does.
It does. But I'm happy with it because it felt like a conversation, and that's really what I was going for. So I'm happy with how we did it.
It felt natural.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, man. Take care, man, and I'll hit you up later. All right.
All right. Likewise.
So that is going to do it for this week's episode. I want to take a moment once again to thank my sponsor, Anchor. Thank you all for listening, and please subscribe to my podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify. You can also listen by downloading the Anchor app or going to anchor.fm and searching for Third Eye Podcasts. If you would like to become a supporter of this podcast financially, you can do so by going on the website and making a monthly contribution of 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. This would help me tremendously in getting better equipment so I can increase the quality of this show. If you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, please reach out to me via Twitter at Marcus_Callahan, or you can email me at marcuscallahan.89@gmail.com. I would absolutely love to have some of my listeners join me for a live conversation. Please be kind and share this episode with your friends and family and help me build my audience. I hope you all have a wonderful and blessed week, and I will be back next Sunday with a brand new episode. Remember, love each other and be kind to one another. Take care.